All right, man, we're live. Yeah, so when I was talking to him, so we're live. Hey, TFWR, we're live. We got another wrestling guru legend here, Marine Corps wrestler, Indiana wrestler, beach national champion. Um, but his wife is still a better athlete from what he was saying than he is. So
By
she can take
far.
him by
Yeah,
far.
by far.
Well, welcome to the show, man. I really do appreciate you coming on. And first of all, Marine Corps, so hoorah! I think that's what they say, and God bless
Yeah,
that.
right.
So
Right.
good for
Semper
you
Fidelis.
there. So how has life been treating you through this pandemic? Seems like we're coming out the other
Yeah,
end.
it's crazy. So life in the pandemic is a bit different for me. I'm a road warrior. I travel like crazy. I think I've canceled now 13 trips since the beginning of March. So I live in Southern California. My office, the company I work for, Paay, is in Manhattan. So our office is one block from the New York Stock Exchange. So I commute back and forth. I've canceled multiple trips to Florida, Panama, Barcelona just got canceled, New Orleans. Like it's crazy. But I work remotely, so and I work in ecom remotely. So for me, it's actually pretty good. The idea of people buying things online for me is fantastic.
Yep. So this is a
The
good
longer
thing.
we stay here, the better we'll do.
So this is a good thing for you.
It's actually a great thing. I work on a fraud and within a fraud platform, a fraud software that basically eliminates friendly fraud in online transactions. So that's what we do. It's a complete nerd world. I'm just the pretty face gets to go out and sell things.
That's awesome. And if you see me looking down, it's because what I try and do initially when I get you guys on is I try to click on as many wrestling rooms as I can to
Oh,
share
gotcha.
you across those platforms so
Yeah.
that you're there with them too. So that's awesome. So e-commerce, man, everybody's online right now. So that's awesome. Now, when you're traveling to do like one-on-one business, or you had mentioned that sometimes you're up in front of people doing
Yeah.
speaking
So
engagements.
I do a lot of actually it's crazy, and I always relate everything back to wrestling, but when I'm traveling, it's trade shows or it's just going out to see clients. As odd as it sounds, now that cauliflower ear is kind of a cool thing, people kind of recognize you as a wrestler or a fighter. So that kind of has opened some doors for me. But yeah, it's getting in front of people, talking, having conversations about kind of wrestling in life, maybe the little bit of the Marine Corps, and then really from an ecom perspective, what people are doing. And I think that it's just a way, it's an approach on business, is to approach it like a wrestler, right? So it's pretty cool. It's kind of one of the things where growing up, I grew up the son of a wrestling coach and a high school English teacher. So my dad's been in the sport for, I don't know, 100 years. He's probably listening, so he'll probably give me grief about
Yeah,
that. But like
because he's only 98.
yeah. But no, I mean, so it's crazy. So he coached in Ohio for a long time. We moved to Florida. They moved to Florida. He coached in Florida, and then they moved back to Ohio, and he kept coaching when he went back to Ohio. So he's been in the sport 40 some years. I've been really fortunate to have awesome coaches, and those guys have all kind of taught me a little bit about wrestling and a little bit about life. My dad the most, my high school coach the most, my college coaches have been fantastic. And then it's just one thing after another that's kind of evolved into who I am as a person, and really from a business perspective, how I approach things, right? It's every negotiation is like a match. So first period, second period, third period, or whatever. But you got to get pumped up for the negotiation or the interview or the whatever. So it's actually really cool. I mean, people think I'm a complete geek about this stuff, and I probably am,
Right.
but the idea is, okay, I'm going into a board meeting. Like, what am I doing? Am I listening to nothing? Am I just rolling in and reading notes, or am I like getting pumped up and listening to the Vision Quest soundtrack or something? I don't know, but it's like,
Yeah.
um, but the mentality shifts when you start to plan and act like that, and you go in and you're like, listen, I'm going to go and kick ass. Like that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, and speak
Like
about
the
that.
rest.
You had a great high school career, right? I think I saw where you had some state titles there, right? Or state placers?
Yeah. Yeah. Wrestling for me, in high school, I came from a really small town. And the pinnacle of the sport of wrestling was to be a state champion. And my first year, I was terrible. And my sophomore year, I kind of was like, all right, maybe. And then by the end, I won a state title. And the only thing that really changed was my mental, my outlook on wrestling. Like, I knew I was a pretty good athlete, and I knew I was a pretty tough kid, and I'm technically pretty sound. I just really didn't put it all together because I was a space cadet and didn't care. I'm like, all right, well, let's see how it goes. So I kind of put it all together, and then won that, and then went to Indiana and wrestled. Very average college wrestler. I think my record was literally like 50-49, but I wrestled some pretty good guys in college. In my first round match at the Big Tens my freshman year is a guy named Lincoln McElravy. He's pretty good. But it's like it's one of those things where I'm wrestling, Donnie Pritzoff, I wrestled a couple times, like Eric Siebert, I wrestled really good guys. Sometimes I was in the match, sometimes I wasn't. But it was cool, and it was a learning experience.
And listen, just to be on a team at that level, you got to be pretty good. And then, so you get done with Indiana, and you decide you're going to go off to the military, right? So did you go on the enlisted side or the officer side?
Yeah. So September 11, 2001 happened, and I went to the recruiting station right after it. I was in Bloomington, Indiana. Went to the recruiting station right after and said, I want to figure this out. I had no history in the military. And I went in and they said, how many pull-ups can you do? And I'm like, dude, I'm a college wrestler. Like, I'll do as many as you want me to do.
How many? One arm or two?
Yeah. So I did a bunch of pull-ups, and they said, all right, you want to be a Marine? You could be an officer if you want. It's going to be about 6 to 8 months before we can get you there, or you can go enlisted. And if you go enlisted, we can get you there in the next couple of weeks. And I was like, well, hold on. Where's this boot camp that you speak of? Because I was from Ohio, I could have went to Parris Island, but because I was in Indiana at the time, they sent me out west here to San Diego. So I was like, let's go play on the beach in San Diego. So that's what I did. I went and
talk about how that got. How did being a wrestler get you through boot camp? Because that's not easy mentally. Forget physically. A wrestler gets pushed physically hard than the athlete anywhere. So physically, the physical part had to be a piece of cake, but mentally is where they try to break you.
Yeah. The Marine Corps boot camp is about kind of playing the game, right? Like, I'm going to get yelled at. Okay. I realized soon after getting there that, I was a little bit older. I was 22 years old, 23 years old, maybe, when I went in. So I had kind of life experience. I'd already, had my fair share of parties and, girlfriends or whatever it was. So it wasn't that far. But when I went in there, I knew I was going to have 3 months of really strict regimented discipline. Right. And I just had to perform. So that's no different than preseason or training for an event or when you're wrestling. Like, the physical side was a piece of cake. The one thing that probably got me the most was the inability to act on something. Like, in a wrestling match, if somebody snaps your head down or is beating you up a little bit, you want to fight back. Well, in the military and training, drill instructors are yelling at me, and I'm like, I can crush you, man. But you don't. You just kind of play the game. I was kind of an elder recruit, I guess, being a few years older, so it was pretty easy for me. But it was a blast. I literally have said this. I would go back and do it again, like today. Like, I had so much fun in Marine Corps boot camp because I watched so many people break, like physically, mentally break. And then you have a group of people that wrestled in high school, 15 or 20 guys over there that wrestled in high school, and they're like, yeah, let's keep going. Let's do this. So
I've heard stories. So you get out of there, I'm sure you got your MOS and whatever, and you go off. So you said you got to wrestle in the Marine Corps too. Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy. I didn't wrestle for the Marine Corps. I just kept training. I went in and then came back and then coached at Indiana for a couple of years. While I was wrestling, like, every base has mats, right? Every single base. And then I dropped into reserve status and I said, hey, I want to try to make the All-Marine team. They'd literally never done it. They'd never had a reservist at that point go try to make the All-Marine team. And I'm like, I can make the team. I'm like, I feel pretty confident about it. I can make the team. So long story short, okay, yeah, let's do that. And then boom, I get deployed. So that I got pulled right back into active duty status, got deployed. So didn't end up wrestling for the Marine Corps on the team. But I always stayed with wrestling. And then kind of then moved down to Florida, wrestled with my buddy, and we're up in Cape Coral, my buddy Trevor Elliott. He's a National Wrestling Hall of Famer, 3-time Illinois state champ, is the head coach there.
Hey, he's on here right now commenting. So hey Trevor, come on the show, brother. Private message. I'll send you a link.
Get him on. The guy's got the best story of all time. But we moved back to Ohio, and I decided to open a gym for at-risk youth. So I wanted the really good wrestlers, and then I wanted the kids who needed some direction, and I wanted them to meet in a wrestling.
That's the club, right? What was it called?
Rough House.
Rough House.
That club, right? So I did Rough House. I teamed up with the local sheriff's department. I said, give me all the bad kids. They don't have to pay. And it came from an idea that my dad gave me when I was growing up. There was like the tough kid in school was talking about the wrestlers, and my dad invited him into practice, and he put him with a guy named Josh Cruz, who was also a state champion. So my dad kind of stacked the deck a little bit, but put him with a state champ. And I watched Josh Cruz just beat this kid senseless, legally beat this kid senseless. But the fact is that the tough guy in school came in and said, I want to see how hard it is. And he left with new respect for the sport. And the idea that it's like, listen, you can talk all you want out on the street, but you get in a wrestling room, it's crazy. So I took the bad kids, I took the good kids, paired them up, and I wanted to see what happened, if I can make an impact on their lives. Hopefully I did. We'll see how it goes.
It's crazy. My son, and I've told the story, he was only 12 in 7th grade. So he was the young kid, the small kid. So he was getting bullied a little bit, and then found wrestling, started wrestling. The start of 9th grade, that same kid who played football, he told him, hey, I've had enough of this. I'm ready. Come to the wrestling room. That didn't happen. The kid never showed up to the wrestling room, and the kid doesn't mess with them anymore either. Yeah. And my son is not amazing right now. He's just a beginning wrestler, and he's coming along. He's got a couple wins on his belt, had a first successful year, but he can wrestle, and that kid can't. So it's like, if you want, let's try it out. Let's see who's better here. And it didn't happen that way.
Yeah, this whole thing has happened. The beach wrestling thing happened on accident. I challenged a kid, Stone Day, who was a state champion in Ohio. I was working with him, and I said, and Stone's like, when's the last time you competed? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, well, I always talk about competing every day. And I was like, dominate something, like really dominate something. And they're like, and I was like, I don't care if you're good at math, dominate math. If you're good at taking naps, dominate taking naps. Like, be really good at something.
Right.
And so Stone asked me about it, and he's like, when's the last time you compete? I was like, I compete every day, man. And he said, oh, like actually wrestling. So I decide, I look at what USA Wrestling has to offer, and it's the USA Wrestling National Beach Championships. So I'm going to enter the veterans division, the old man's division. I lost like 30 some pounds. Like, I got in, hired a nutritionist. Like, I did it perfectly. I go down there, and I was the only one entered in my weight class in my division, actually.
So you won.
So I won that. But then they made me wrestle the college guys, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good. So, when you're coming into a tournament, and especially freestyle tournaments, they do the rules meeting, and everyone's there, and you're looking around, and you're like, oh, that kid looks good, or that guy looks good, or this kid looks good, like sizing them up. Well, there was one guy that I was like, I hope I don't have to wrestle him. As luck would have it, it was my first round match. So he actually, beach wrestling is almost like sumo. So, wrestling in the Big Ten, you learn how to hand fight, hold position. So there's a circle. If you push them out of the circle, you get a point. So it actually worked out well for me. Low center of gravity. I'm old, so I don't move very well. I just kind of planted myself there, and and end up winning the title. But it was crazy. You know, it was like this beach wrestling thing. Then I move out here to California, and I'm driving down the street and I see a sign on the road that says Dan Henderson's Athletic Fitness Center.
Oh,
And
he's
so
a pretty good
I'm like, yeah.
athlete.
So I'm like, who's this? I'm like, if that's Hendo, I'm going in there. And so I go in, and it's Sam Alvey, who's fighting this weekend, is in there. Tom Galicchio was in there. He did a couple seasons on Ultimate Fighter.
In Jacksonville, right? I think they're in Jacksonville this weekend, right?
Yeah. And Sam's actually the first fight on the card. Good friend of mine. But all these guys are in there.
Mako said he's bringing some people up there.
It's going to be awesome evening. Like, I can't wait to see sports again, but especially in UFC. But, you know, it's crazy. I go in, there's a cage, there's mats everywhere, and I'm like, this is my home. Like, I feel really comfortable here in a wrestling room. I pulled business from there. I pulled great friends from there. Tom Galicchio and I are we search out speakeasies in Temecula, California, underground bars every now and again. So yeah, it's a good time, and all of these things come from wrestling. You mentioned my wife and me being the worst athlete. My wife made 2 Olympic teams, and the reason we met was because my backpack said Big Ten Wrestling Championships on it. So she, of course, knowing that I'm extremely good looking, comes over.
Are you listening, Miss Hildenbrand?
No, she's like, I'm not listening to anything the guy says. But so that happened, and then she goes, yeah, she was a freshman in college. She's like, oh yeah, I have to get my picture taken. I might make the Olympics. I was like, whatever, like, get out of here. I might make the Olympics. She makes the Sydney Games, then the Athens Games, and now I have daughters, and my daughters are gymnasts, and they're very good. So I have to pick a sport that's similar to wrestling, that we all want to do. So now it's surfing. And surfing and wrestling are very similar.
But you tell your wife, right? Listen, you made the Olympics. I made beach wrestling. I'm USA beach wrestling.
Yeah. So I remember getting interviewed.
You might have dove at Sydney, but I'm USA beach.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, a national champ. And you're like, really? I was like, I mean, yeah, it was, but it wasn't like it was a real tournament. And I can't believe I did it. Like, honestly, like not the wrestling part. The wrestling part was easy. Not the matches, but just wrestling. But the idea of hiring a nutritionist, I remember I weighed like 208.
Trevor Elliott said you married way up.
Way outkicked my coverage for sure.
He said he married way up. Oh, that's funny.
It was like,
that's pretty cool though, because you founded a place that, I mean, do wrestlers know about that they're, I mean, how many wrestlers out there going, man, what am I going to do next? Well, shoot, there's a pro beach circuit. Why don't you go do that? I mean, there's like places where you could still go and this can take you, and you can, how fun would that be? Like, hey, what do you do for a living? I hit these beaches all around the country and I wrestle.
Yeah, so Jeff Jacobs or Jeffrey Lee on the Wrestling Room, he wrestled in the Beach World Championships. And he lives right down the street from me now. Like, he lives in San Clemente. But we talk about that, and it's like, wrestling never stops. I'm 43 years old tomorrow. And wrestling doesn't stop. Thank you. I still do it. I'll still go in and wrestle high school kids, or my daughters yesterday on the beach. My warm-up was like, okay, let me hit a couple single legs on you. Okay, I'm ready to go. Now I'm going to go surfing. Right? Like, that's just how I think. But
do they wrestle?
They my youngest daughter, no, she's a gymnast. My oldest daughter, no, because she's also a gymnast, but they can wrestle. So we'll see. It's still to be decided or to be determined.
Say gymnasts, even for men. I mean, I talked to some parents that have their kids during the off season doing gymnastics just for their flexibility and stuff.
Yeah, I gave a speech the other day and then made a video about it. And I said, there's 2 sports that I think develop athletic ability, power, balance, strength, speed, everything. Wrestling, because I'm biased, obviously. Yeah. And I was like, and that's second to gymnastics. And I was like, if I can take a gymnast and the amount of power that they can generate just with their bodies, and then teach them how to shoot a double leg or a high crotch or something, with the flexibility they have and hand strength and grip strength and pulling strength, like they're going to be really hard to beat. So yeah, gymnastics is great. The other thing I was talking about the other day is football linemen. If you play football and you're in the interior line, offense or defense, and you don't wrestle, you're an absolute idiot. Like,
the problem usually, the problem isn't the kids. The problem isn't the kids. The kids want to do it. The problem is they're being influenced by coaches
high school coaches
do not want their son or their players doing that because they're afraid of them getting hurt. Or the big excuse that I hear is, oh no, we have off-season workouts. Okay, first of all, your off-season workouts. Look, I mean, I don't work out much anymore. My kids trying to get me out there to do it, but I've seen them, and your football players are not doing anything close to what they would do in the wrestling room to be prepared for that. And it's insane.
Yeah. I mean, so off-season workouts, say you work out every day off-season. That's about an hour. That's 5 hours of work. Like that's an average day for a wrestler. You know what I mean? So it doesn't, and the other thing is they lift, they gain weight, they want to get bigger and stronger, which they do. You get bigger and stronger in a weight room, but you also don't know how to athletically move that mass that you've now created. So it's really crazy, the idea. The football coaches, high school football coaches, think every one of their players is going to go play in NCAA or NAIA or whatever.
The center of gravity, the getting low, the hand. So I have a question. And I've asked this. I said, how many football players? So I'm a football player, and I did football in high school, and I did college, and now I walked into a pro wrestling room, and I made the wrestling team. How many times have you heard that? Never, right? Doesn't happen. Okay, so how many times have we heard? You know, I played football maybe 1 year in high school. I did Pop Warner, but then I wrestled through high school, wrestled through college. I wrestled some World Games stuff, and then I went out for the New England Patriots, and I made the team as an offensive lineman.
It's crazy, right? Like that happens over and over. Mike Dixon, who's the assistant, I think head assistant coach or whatever they call it, associate head coach at Indiana right now. I wrestled with him in Indiana. Was at Old Dominion for a long time. He walked on to the football team at Indiana in the Big Ten his senior year and made the team, having not played since high school. But because the athletic training that he had as a college heavyweight and just the tenacity, the mental like thought process of I'm going to compete every play made the team. Brett Becks did the same thing. Also at Indiana.
7 linemen in the draft this year were wrestlers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
you're like, what do you want to do? I want to play football. Go wrestle. Do that.
Right. So if it's hard for a wrestler, and I get it. And believe me, most of these football coaches have forgotten more about sports and athletics than I'll ever know in my life. I get it, and I respect it. I respect their sport. My dad coached in that sport. I love the sport. However, it's not wrestling. And everybody I talk to, every school I speak to who has a coach, a wrestling program, and a football program that cooperate and help each other have successful programs, have a successful wrestling program, have better linemen, have more people getting college opportunities, have more growth in their stuff. Anytime I speak to an AD that tells me, yes, my wrestling coach and my football coach have such a good relationship, they're creating better athletes. There's so much more success in the room. But when you look at a school that's struggling to get the football coach to cooperate, that's where the wrestling program is struggling to grow. And it's sad to see.
100% agree with you. Some of the high school coaches embrace it. And when they do, it's fantastic. When they don't embrace it, it becomes contentious. They're arguing football, wrestling. And then guess what? The glory in football is really behind, or glory in high school is behind football. So the guys go play football. And then you know what happens? They come back 5-10 years later and they're like, dang it, I wish I would have wrestled. And I'm like, yep. I mean,
or they get down the road and somebody tells them, man, you know what made me great? You know, who knows? Maybe they're a freshman at college and they're trying to make that team or whatever. They're trying to walk on. and they're talking to their buddy, man, how'd you get so good? How'd you get so quick? You get down so, oh, I wrestled in high school. Damn, I should have done that. And
what's crazy now is with fighting and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and just boxing and striking and all these things, these guys come in. I've never done jiu-jitsu a day in my life, but I'll roll with a black belt any day of the week. And if we stay on our feet, I'll beat them senseless. So the idea behind this is, guys, they're 5'7". They think that they're going to be basketball players or running backs. Well, they're not. There are outliers, but they're not. Then 10 years later, they get into jiu-jitsu and they're like, man, I wish I would have wrestled. Man, I wish I would. Yeah, I'm telling you.
Look at these NFL guys now that got done with their NFL career and they're killing people.
Yeah,
they have the mentality of a pro athlete. Look, to get to the pros in any level, you have to be a great athlete and you've got to be mentally strong and you got to have it. So we're not saying that you're bad because you chose your path, but
right.
But these linemen, offensive and defensive linemen, should be in the room there. I totally agree. And if you go to a jiu-jitsu coach, he'll tell you, it's funny, a jiu-jitsu coach will say, man, I love when I get wrestlers because they already know, they have the foundation of jiu-jitsu already. But when you're a wrestling coach, man, I hate when I get a jiu-jitsu right away because they always go to their back and I got to break them of that habit. So you hear it, but yeah.
That doesn't go both ways. Yeah. Somebody's been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. They come up with these weird, funky chokes and they're like probably legal only because the referee can't see them. In the practice room, they're definitely legal. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool progression and it's great for the sport of wrestling with mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu and like all of these things. Like it takes some of the stigma of rolling around with somebody else, away. Cause you're like, I'm going to roll around with that guy, but I also whipped his ass. So that's pretty fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And cause I know my, Daniel's coach, Coach Rose and Wheel Dryer, they had a kid that was an MMA fighter and obviously he was strong. He was judo flipping, whatever. But they would always be like, get off your back.
Yeah.
Get off.
He's like,
because it's just automatic. He's like, but this is where I feel comfortable. He would get pinned right there. Man, so hey man, I know we could talk forever, but let's do this again, man. Let's bring more people on. I'm gonna shoot some questions at you. Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead. Send them over.
So you're down by 3 going into the third period. You have choice. Are you going top, bottom, or neutral?
I'm going down, bottom.
Folk style or freestyle?
Freestyle, 100%.
I can look at your ears. Headgear or no headgear?
That's a weapon, so no headgear.
Only one day available to train. Do you go to a rumble or do you go to a clinic?
I'm probably going to go to a clinic.
Okay. Who wins the rematch, Loudon Swain or Brian Shoot?
That's Shoot all day long. Loudon had one chance. He got it and he's out.
He's out.
Yeah.
Which title holds more prestige, the Super 32 or the Fargo?
Fargo.
All right. What's more dominant, a pin or a tech?
A tech. Yeah, it's got to be a tech.
Steve Hall right now is going, yeah, tech. Popeyes or Chick-fil-A?
Ooh. So I'm going to go with Chick-fil-A because there's more options.
Depends what part of the country you're in.
Yeah. And actually here where I live, they're literally right next to each other. It's crazy. And In-N-Out is right next to them. So you have In-N-Out, Popeyes, and Chick-fil-A.
I'd go get the spicy chicken at Popeyes, and then I'd walk over and get the waffle fries. Nuggets or tenders?
Tenders.
Whopper or Big Mac?
Oh, double Whopper with cheese.
Ooh, cut in half. That's awesome, man. Hey, man, I really appreciate having you on. I'm glad I reached out. I saw that you had commented or whatever, and then that's how I kind of meet a lot of people. I see them and I reach out. Like now, you got Trevor Elliott on here. I'm still yelling at him. Come on!
Yeah. So yeah, Trevor's the best, maybe one of the best stories I've heard in wrestling. It's very good. He broke his neck, became a quadriplegic, and now you can't tell. But National Wrestling Hall of Fame Medal of Courage winner just this past winter, and head coach at Cape Coral High School. So he's got an awesome story. He's horrible. I mean, horrible to look at, and and he's not very funny. But
Is he married?
No, I think his wife broke up with him for probably a lot of reasons. But I think
ugly,
a pretty good girl on the side now, Kelly. But a couple daughters. You know, all us wrestlers, especially at Indiana, except for the heavyweights, every one of us has daughters. Every single one of us. All of us have daughters, except for our heavyweight Vito. Vito has boys, but the last name Marisi, you'll hear about them. They'll be in the NFL. So they're at Westlake in Austin, Texas. His 6-year-old just turned 7, weighs 80 pounds. And Vito's 6'5". So I mean, they're going to be in the NFL. But
I got a guy at 4 coming on, Pat Downey.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't spoke to him before, but I got a hold of him. We set it up, and all the videos I watch, seems like he's a pretty cool character.
He's a gangster. He's a gangster.
Yeah.
I think he's repping New Jersey Regional Training Center now. So, you know, those guys up there, it's a shared between Rutgers and Princeton. And I don't know where Ryder falls in there, but yeah, I mean, what those guys are doing in Jersey is crazy. Princeton's a top 10 program now. Rutgers is rapidly on the rise. They have an amazing staff at Regional Training Center, New Jersey. And then
those two coaches at Princeton are Ayers and Dubuque. They're doing a great job. And then so my aunt and uncle both went to Princeton, and then my aunt I think is like an associate AD there now or something. But I reached out to not my aunt and uncle, but I did talk to them about it. But I emailed those guys, and my uncle's like, "Hey, you might not want to talk to Chris. You might want to talk to his dog. She's a badass.
She's double bunch champ. She's solid."
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll ask him if he'll bring her on instead. But it's funny. But he emailed just recently before I got on with you. He's like, "Hey, look, he signed up." Funny. May 12th, 2:30 p.m. Hey, we got him coming on. He's coming on? He just signed up.
Oh, Aaron. Princeton. Yeah. I usually wear Princeton wrestling stuff all the time. I love what they're doing. No scholarships. They can't take transfers. They have 100% graduation rate. If you get into Princeton, you graduate from Princeton, you're set, and you're getting world-class training. So
how good is Glory?
Oh my gosh. And he's with Joey every day. And Dubuque was a 2-time national champion at Indiana. And I thought Joey was crazy. Joe said Pat Glory is absolutely insane. He's like, that kid is insane. And
I'm trying to get Dubuque on. I don't have his number, so I messaged
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. I'll text him and send it to you.
Yeah, because he said he signed up for Wednesday the 13th, but I'm like, I keep messaging like, dude, it didn't come through. But then I don't want to be like a pain in the ass, right? So I'm like, how many times do you ask before
Joey's from Jersey. He's a pain in the ass to begin with, so you can apply that pressure.
Perfect. Well, now I have leverage. I'm like, yo, your coach is on.
Yeah, there you go. I had him 1 year. He got 8th. Yeah. And so that year, actually 2 years, but the 1 year he became All-American. The first time he got 8th. But he had Mike Mena training him too. Mena was probably more his coach than I was. I just drove him around when he had maybe too much to drink, but that's a different.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got a gentleman named JD Robbins coming on next at 2. He's a USA wrestling coach. He was a USA wrestling coach. I guess he's got a kid that was a stud. He runs one of the wrestling clubs down at UCF. So
oh, cool.
It's a local club here, and I had the Gator Club on. I've got the Florida State Club on, and I'm just kind of, you look at these platforms and everybody. Yes, don't get me wrong. Am I like a kid when I have a Yanni D, a Julian Ramirez, a Spencer Lee, a Steve Mako, Jody Strittmatter? Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I love that, right? But I really want people to see the what the NAIA is doing, what the NCWA is doing, what Division 3 and Division 2 is doing, because I mean, let's be honest, everybody has a dream to be a blue chip athlete and be Division 1. But
Right.
90% of you are going to go become a college student. You may wrestle. So understand all these coaches out there and what they're giving. So now with this platform, people are getting to meet through my video the guy that's running North Central Illinois, the guy that's running Campbell, the guy that's running a couple NAIA programs, the guy that's out running UCal. I had Lightning Luke Smith on it.
Luke Smith, yeah. You know, it's
So-
crazy. I used to bag on Florida. I used to bag on Florida wrestling. You know, from Ohio, and grew up in the Midwest, went down, whatever. And I went down and started wrestling. And I was like, I lived in Fort Myers. So I went over to Riverdale High School, and Scotty Sentis was in there. I think he was like probably 3-time state champ or whatever at the time. But I outweighed him by like 70 pounds at least. And that kid could scrap. And I was like, you know what? These guys are actually legit. Like,
he went 213-3 in high school.
Sick.
So, and I asked him, I said, hey, what's your most memorable matches? He goes, the 3 I lost. I can't stand them. I keep thinking about them. And most people I asked, like, it's crazy. I mean, I asked, except Spencer Lee, he's like, my son said, ask him this question. He wrestles with the guy that beat him in high school, his only loss. And he's like, yeah, I lost. And I told him, hey, come to Iowa with me. Like, he's like, yeah, he's like, dude. I was like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I mean, so what? Like, I haven't lost since then. Like,
I had a lot of losses. The 3 that were the most like damaging or whatever, Lincoln McElravy, because I've never been outclassed like that. He outclassed me. Jeff Catcherbone, he wrestled at Michigan. I'm pretty sure that dude was trying to actually rip my arms off, and he got close to it. He got close to ripping them off. And then so that was a bad one. Cole Clausen, that was a close match. I ended up losing, and he just gassed me. But the other one I remember is Ryan Cunningham from Central Michigan. Got me in like a banana split, like spladle looking thing. And I remember screaming to the ref that I was pinned. And he's like, you're not pinned. And I'm like, yes, I am. Like, it's that bad when you're trying to pin yourself, and I couldn't get down. So, you know, those are the life lessons you get. Like, sometimes, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. I've become like the Central Michigan platform. It's been amazing. So the first one, I had Connor Beebe on, right? He's got the BB train down here, amazing guy. And then he says to me, hey, reach out to this guy. His name's Scotty Sentis. I'm like, okay. I reach out to him. And then my buddy sends me, hey, my coach in Georgia or wherever the heck he was Borelli. So he's like, here, call Borelli. So I get Borelli on. Now Scotty and Connor sending me everybody. I think I've had their whole entire team on, and amazing guys. But the one thing that I find unbelievable is the men that Borelli creates for society is unbelievable. All these kids that came from his program, and young adults and adults now that are coaching around the country and just doing life and kicking ass. It's unbelievable. He's doing it the right way, man.
Yeah, it's his sport. I mean, my college coach, Dwayne Goldman, Dwayne and I didn't, obviously as an athlete, we didn't see eye to eye at any time. You know, he wrestled at Iowa and all this, never really saw eye to eye. But the kind of the life lessons, like, I don't know that I've seen a better father or husband ever than Dwayne Goldman. And that speaks volumes about the kind of person he is. You know, he's not in Indiana any longer. I think he's out in Colorado or something. But just watching him with Patty and his kids, and it was like, I want to be that guy, I mean, you got to look at your sport. Listen, I probably wasn't going to be a national champion or anything in the NCAA, but I wanted to have good coaches. And I was lucky enough to get good coaches with the ones I had. Dwayne, Lenny Zaleski, Charles Burton, Alan Freed was there, Moran Karchalava, all these guys, or Jason Kelber.
A lot. I was listening to, Gabe Dean has this podcast now, and I was lucky enough to reach out, and he responded. He's like, yeah, cool, I'll come on. So I had him on. Super nice guy. And he was pretty good. And so he had his podcast and he was talking about that today, and I kept messaging him because I really believe that coaching matters. I believe in business, having the right managers around you matter, because we've all been in situations where we're like, man, that's not my skill set. Why do you keep making me want to do that? Like, why do you keep putting me in that office? Like, this is what I'm good at. So I kept asking, I go, what is it like when you have maybe an A+ personality that, let's say I'm, I don't know, I'm Yanni or whatever, and you're the coach, and I'm like, yo, but I'm Yanni, whatever. Yanni would never do that, but just as a personality, how do you deal with that personality? And he's like, well, first of all, we have rules and we have stuff you have to follow by, right? But around that, we have different coaches. So different coaches obviously have different personalities. So we're able to coach everybody with our strengths as well. So maybe I need to react differently to this guy than this guy does. The firm hand for that wrestler will be Coach A, and the guy that puts him around the back will be Coach B. So it really matters, because I think that you can really see somebody flourish or fail in the wrong system with the wrong people. And I think it's been proven.
100%. I talked to my sales team now that I have. I said, very, very simply, there's 168 hours in the week. We're going to require that you work 40 of them. Make sure that those 40 count. So if you need to work out during the day or take a nap or walk your dogs or whatever, I don't care. You want to take a 3-hour lunch, go take one. Know that I'm going to get my 40 hours from you though. So right. And I'm big in like, not really biohacking, but the idea of like, if you're most productive from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m., those 3 hours, go hard during those 3 hours and then take a break. Maybe you operate really well late at night. Like, position your day around when you're going to be the most effective.
I totally agree with you. When I've been doing real estate now for the last couple of years or whatever, and we bring on cold callers, whatever. We cold call and then we bring on cold callers. And I've been around people who are like, no, if they're going to work for us, they can only call between 9 and 11, right? And I'm like, okay, that may be a hot time, but what if they don't function from 9 to 11?
Right. Simply.
So then either they're from the mentality, well, that I'm not hiring them, they're not right for my team because they have to function between those hours. Well, that's fine. But what if they're really talented, but they function best from 5 to 8? Why can't we do that? Why can't we have that guy function from 5 to 8 at 100%? So yeah, I agree with you. I tend to be from that mentality as well. I think that, unless you're at a job where you have to go 9 to 5 and punch a clock, whatever, but in sales, you don't. You can create your own system. You can create your own method that works. You can create your own income. So yeah, I agree, man. I could keep talking to you, but I got to get on with this other guy.
Cool.
Hey,
well, thank you.
I'm going to send you my cell so we can communicate.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Let's.
When you're in Florida, man, let's have a beer or a Coke.
I'm there like 10 times a year, just not in the last 2 months. But where are you located? I'm
in Orlando.
Okay, cool.
But my brother and sister-in-law have a brewery, St. Pete Brewing Company, down in St. Pete. So we can go get a beer there too.
Yeah, let's connect, because I know about, I don't know, a couple thousand people in St. Pete. Our entire e-com world lives and operates from St. Pete. So. Yeah, it's super, super connected, but
it's becoming the new Asheville. I mean, it's becoming Beer City, USA.
It's perfect. And I love
it doesn't
beer.
have the mountains. It doesn't have the Blue Ridge Mountains. So,
all right, cool. Well, thanks, man. And I sincerely appreciate it. Good luck. I'll send you some names, see if we can get some other of these idiot friends of mine on to chat with you.
Especially Trevor Elliott. All right. See you, man. Thanks.
Thanks, man.